He needs his vote polled immediately. And I'll say, I don't care. The leader, the boss. Where is Josh Heupel? The largest humans he can find. You got Miami and Georgia and Florida State and Tennessee and Texas A&M. Kirby wants you. LSU and Ole Miss. Not even a football player, but he's 6'10", 334. Kirby said, sign me up. That's all they've got to offer when it comes to a defensive player. What could they possibly say other than, how down do you have to be for a win? Let us pay you. All they got to be is enormous. What could they possibly say? Knock the team out west. Oh, well. They'll take him if they're lowly rated, too. I'm not some guy who's some Big Ten homer. Behind that, I will never find it acceptable. I want to see it, man, because they've got nothing else.
All right. Well, in life, all good things come to an end eventually. I give Ohio State a lot of credit. They dominated the football game.
Hey, welcome to Juck on College Football. Appreciate you guys so much for joining me. We got to talk about this Indiana squad. You know, we all know the story. Indiana, Kurt Cignetti, first year, comes in, brings a bunch of James Madison guys with him, a bunch of his coaches with him. He's an established coach. He's experienced, flips the roster, brings in guys with a lot of production and lower level football, keeps some of the Indiana guys on the roster, does a really good job identifying talent and dogs, man. They got some real dogs on the squad. And their coach, great. We're talking Kansas State, right? Iowa. Like, they just do everything right, but they seem to have more talent than those two squads. And they've impressed the hell out of me this year. But of all the playoff contending teams, their schedule by far the worst. And against the only team that they played that has some NFL dudes in Michigan, that second half, 19 total yards of offense for Indiana. Just chewed up and spit out. So the big question was, what would we see when they go against Ohio State? And today we got to see it. Now, as you know, I'm an Ohio State fan. I try to be as fair as I can, but sometimes I might see it a different way than you. So you can let me know, but I'm going to tell you what I saw. It seemed to me like Ohio State dominated that game. And some people have a different opinion. Some people think, I've heard already today, that if it weren't for two bad special teams plays by Indiana, that's just a touchdown game. Those arguments to me are always pretty weak, and not because special teams is part of the game. I understand where you're coming from when you say that, but my point is Indiana drops a punt inside the 5. Ohio State gets the ball, punches it in. Ohio State would have gotten that ball at the 50, and we didn't get to see that possession. That possession from the 50 didn't happen. Would they have scored there? We don't know. The second one, the Caleb Downs punt return for a touchdown, Ohio State would have had that possession. Would they have scored on that possession? We don't know. So to say that it would be a touchdown game is to say that those two possessions would have for sure not resulted in a score. And we can't say that. We don't know. Seemed to me like Ohio State was moving the ball pretty well on them. So I don't really like that logic or that line of thinking. But I'm trying to be honest here, and it seemed to me like Will Howard was on point, started off 14 for 14. I'll give Indiana's run defense credit. I think they did a really, really solid job stopping the run, but they could not cover those wide receivers at all. And it just felt to me like that was a pretty dominant win. And obviously the scoreboard reflects that as well.
It was like a nightmare.
So what are we saying here? This Indiana team, now 11-1, who in the only 2 times they played teams with serious talent, second half of the Michigan game, the entire Ohio State game, they looked totally outclassed. Totally outclassed. I would have liked to come out of this game not feeling this way. I would have liked if I came out of this game feeling like Indiana belongs. And that's how I would have felt if that were a close game. And I already said I can be somewhat negative when it comes to my own team. I'm sure some of you guys can understand where you're coming from. But a lot of times if Ohio State plays a team that I think they should beat really healthy and they don't beat them healthy, then I knock Ohio State instead of giving that other team credit. But this game, I was going to come out of this game feeling like, provided Ohio State looked like they were playing well, if it was close, that I was going to give Indiana some credit here. And that's the way I wanted to feel, because I think it's cool as hell for us as college football fans when we kind of get another one in the club, right? And Indiana's trying to get in the club. Ton of investment. They just built a new weight facility, all football. They just paid Kurt Cignetti $9 million a year. That's like top 10-ish coach money. And I'd love to know what the expectations are on him from the administration paying him that kind of money. But it's one more player. It's one more potential game on the slate for us, for as college football fans, for every Saturday, right? We look every Saturday. What's the slate? One more potential good game. So I love it, seeing another team kind of get in the club with investment and trying to get there, trying to play winning football, getting all the buy-in. And we saw what the home game has looked like. The Michigan game, the Nebraska game, they packed the stadium. Look, I've been living in the Big Ten all my life in this area. Indiana's never looked like this. So I think it's cool. And I would have liked to come out of this game feeling like, all right, they belong at this level. I don't feel like that. Curious to know what you guys think.
Every time we drop back to pass, something bad happened.
But I would have preferred to come out of this game thinking, okay, Indiana passed the test, and I just don't. I don't. I feel like, as well, like Indiana would get smashed against Oregon, Bama, Georgia, Texas, any team with talent like Ohio State. I think that Indiana team is getting smashed. But does that mean they don't belong in the playoff? I think that there are several other teams that would get smashed by Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, Texas, all the teams on that level with that kind of talent, Oregon. And I guess it's them and Tennessee, kind of almost there. But all those teams, I think, would smash that Indiana team unless Indiana really had things clicking. But when you look at how they were dominated, those receivers who for Indiana were averaging 18 and 22 yards a carry, Cooper and Surratt, big numbers. That team had one explosive play in Ohio State the whole game, one 20-yard play. And those receivers went against two cornerbacks at Ohio State who have been flat out not good this year. They've not been good at all. You guys have all seen it. Denzel Ward, since the Oregon game, he's been no better coming out of that Oregon game. IGB, the one who holds all the time, yeah, that cat had 3 penalties today. He's not been good. He got himself pulled from the game. So those receivers couldn't get off on on those two corners. Like, it just makes me feel like they're kind of fraudulent. And I shouldn't say that, not fraudulent, but they have a ceiling, and I think we've seen what the ceiling is. Curtis Rourke, this guy was 8 for 18. He was top 5 in the Heisman odds last week, which obviously that's going to plummet now that we've seen what he looks like against a team like this. But we just got to ask ourselves, are there other teams in the playoff field come November? If they came into Ohio Stadium, would they get beat up like that by Ohio State? We can look at the 2 ACC teams that are going to play for the ACC Championship in Miami and SMU. The Big 12 champion, whoever that is. We got a mess over there in the Big 12. Arizona State, Colorado. Who the hell else is in the mix there? It's just a mess. Iowa State, are they winning right now? Maybe Iowa State could potentially get themselves back in the mix here. Any one of those teams, I think that they're going to come into Ohio Stadium in that same situation and probably look like they don't belong either. And honestly, I think that every year we're going to go into this playoff when it goes from especially 12 to 14, and there's going to be 4 or 5 teams. Oh, let's say Boise we can throw in there. 4 or 5 teams that we know aren't going to be able to compete against the teams with the upper echelon talent level. We just know that. So does that mean Indiana shouldn't be in? Of course not. Coming into today, I thought that if Indiana looked like they did today, like if that game played out like that the conversation between Tennessee, who's kind of the first one out with 2 losses, and Indiana might not go Indiana's way if Indiana got embarrassed at Ohio State. Fortunately for Indiana and for Tennessee, Ole Miss lost. And Ole Miss losing to Florida, maybe we'll do another video on a couple of different games this week, but that one was unbelievable. But Indiana gets saved by that. They're not going to be in that argument because of that. But are they going to be in a different argument? Because the winner of SMU and Miami is going to be the ACC Championship game loser, 11-1 regular season. Either one of them, SMU or Miami, both have better schedules than Indiana. And we've talked last video, I talked about how I cannot stand seeing a team lose in the conference championship and then being dropped below a team that didn't play. Indiana's not going to play in the conference championship. So we're going to get to see what the committee is going to do here when we talk about a team that plays and loses in a conference championship, 11-1 regular season, conference championship loss versus an Indiana team, 11-1 regular season, no conference championship game. That's kind of an even comparison to me. And if that team is Miami, potentially dangerous for Indiana, right? You got to think that's going to be something that we're going to see come up here. As of right now, I don't know who I'd choose. I think that's very close for me. I know a lot of you guys feel like Miami with the Virginia Tech game and the way that went down at the end, like they already have another loss. Like, honestly, I thought that was the right call. I thought it was the right call. I thought that when he hit the ground, the ball popped loose. And, you know, look, I don't like the catch rules the way they are, but I mean, by the rules, I thought it was the right call. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. I'm enjoying interacting with the masses of college football. I started doing videos about 9 months ago on a show called Juck on Bucks, primarily an Ohio State show. It's every morning at 9:30 live. But I talk a lot of national college football on that show as well. We got some Oregon fans over there, Michigan, Georgia, some Bama and Texas. Hop on with us at 9:30, but I will continue to put up some national videos over here because it's boring just to talk about the team you like. It can rot your brain to live in a bubble of your own team. So appreciate you guys joining me. Please subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think. Talk to you soon. Hey, it's Juck.
Juck? Who is Juck?
Juck on Bucks.
Juck on Bucks. Juck on Bucks?
Juck.
Juck
On Bucks.
My guy, Juck.
Juck on Bucks.
My buddy Juck.
Juck is the Juck.
It's Juck on Bucks.
Okay.
Juck is junk.
The Juck eyes. The Juck
Juck on Bucks.
Junk. Juck. Not junk. Juck.